Hi, I'm Theo, and these broadcasts are to support the blogs on nomorec.com's website as well as the online classes. In this episode, we explore when a female professor challenged Dr. Heiser. We're back with another episode of the No More C broadcast, and you might be interested in this episode because of the catchy title, where it kind of at the outset might look like that a female professor put Dr. Michael S. Heiser in his place. Well, that won't be too far from the truth if you follow the channel. So, as we have discussed at No More C, what we're trying to do here is to produce content that describes my journey in order to assist other people in their journey. And one of the folks who has exemplified this for me the most has been Dr. Heiser and his journey and how he was able to do his own dissertation and what it caused in his paradigm shift that has caused paradigm shifts for a lot of people. But it all began for a young student when, not really being taught the Bible, that he didn't know much, and he grants that. And so early in his academic studies, he was challenged by a female professor. And, you know, this is something that caused a change in him. And that change in him then allowed him to become the man he is today. And many people respect him as a great scholar. But before he was a great scholar, he was challenged by a female professor that sort of, I'm going to say, put him in his place as he was in his first year in college. And it was a good place to be put in. And because he was put in that place, it launched him forth into the man he's become today. And if like for me, he's a beacon post or a light to kind of target and say, you know, I would like to get to where he's at, or I'd like to understand where he's at. And that answers that question one of my students had that I've been trying to do in understanding this, and that's explaining a challenge she made to him. So this was early on at his orientation at college, and it was a session on time management. And I remember having a similar session, but not being necessarily told the same thing. And what he was told is that really 5 minutes is a long time. And through that, God was able to speak to him providentially. And he took it to heart. And it's a philosophy. So I'd like to issue the same challenge that was given to Dr. Heiser. And for you possibly to be confronted. And maybe this is a way that you can accept this challenge that was given to Dr. Heiser, and it would cause you to become a better person. And so the idea is simply this, okay, at its core. If 5 minutes is a long time, then each one of us should be able to set aside at least 5 minutes every day to learn something new, something we didn't know about, okay? If you take out 5 minutes, and I think we would like to exemplify that on this channel in future videos for you to understand this and do maybe some examples and try to build up to this. But just take 5 minutes every day out of your schedule. Make it a part of your schedule. This is, you know, if you need to do it at the same time, the same place, the same way every day, whatever. But you're going to set aside 5 minutes to make sure that you know something that you did not know the day before. You're going to improve yourself. You're going to understand something. You're just going to take it. And Dr. Heiser has admittedly said this repeatedly. And you hear it in his interviews and different times he shares in his podcast, or, he shares quite a bit with the world at large. And so his content is everywhere. So it might be on YouTube or wherever. But he talks about how one way to implement this, and one easy way, really super easy way to implement this, is just taking what is often called the Bible dictionary. Some people, when you think initially of a dictionary, it's a reference work that has a word and it has a few sentences to define that word, and that's it. And then there's what's also known later on maybe as an encyclopedia, where you have a term, but then it's explored more in depth than a traditional dictionary does. And so Bible dictionaries are often, they use that term, and it more so leans toward the encyclopedic knowledge. So usually a Bible dictionary is going to define a term more like an encyclopedia does, and give a longer reading of a term, and stick more to lexicons giving the shorter definitions or whatnot. So depending on the type of lexicon. So just taking any biblical reference work, such as a Bible dictionary, and reading an entry, maybe something that interests you, something that comes up if you're in class and the professor says something and you don't understand it. You can write that word down, or maybe you're in class and you get challenged. And this is something that I love with my students. If I say something to my students that's quite challenging, more often than not, to be honest, I've been challenged myself. So I used to think some way that I just kind of stumbled across, either in my own reading of the Bible, or what I've been taught from, family members or friends, or in my church or Sunday school settings or whatever. And then a professor like this professor that confronted Dr. Heiser will confront me, or I'll read some peer-reviewed academic literature and it will, challenge me in what I formerly understood. And I'll take a closer look at the Bible and the text, and I'll test out what they say versus what I understood, or at the time understand. And, I'll see if their position merits a change in my thinking. And Dr. Heiser on his website, drdrmsh.com, actually has a post that is quite relevant to that he just posted here recently, that you might want to look into. And it's called Things I Have Learned. And so, just kind of cruise down through that, and you can see things that he's learned in his many years of being a biblical academic theologian and scholar. And so, that's important, because if we're trying to figure out how to get not just the knowledge, but we're trying to understand how you got to where you are, that you can achieve this level of knowledge. And so the simple thing is, Dr. Heiser would just say, okay, take out a word, an entry in a Bible dictionary, and read it, and just kind of chew on that. And so if your professor says something in class and you're like, that's not what I was taught, or that's not what I believe. Well, why? Why would the professor say that? And is he or she wrong? And why do you believe what you believe? And then go research it out. So if they say something and you're not quite sure, you might want to revisit what you previously thought to be true, and revisit the reasons why you believe that. And so this is what I tell my students. They're pretty familiar with this. Any of my students that I teach, I usually tell them, if you write papers, okay, for my classes, and you want to write something that's critical, in other words, you disagree with me, If you do a good job and you justify why you believe what you believe and why you think what I presented in my class is wrong, you're probably going to get higher marks or grades because you've done that than if you just write a paper that agrees with me. But I get very little interaction. And so if you can, disagree. So if you disagree with someone, you have a conversation with someone about anything and you disagree with them, you should try as much as possible to switch over and be that researcher and try not to defend your view as much as understand theirs. Because if you truly are a student, then you are studying and you're trying to learn. And so when someone says something that does not click with you, then as a student, what you're trying to do is you're trying to learn. And it's a part of this 5 minutes. You're trying to learn something today that you did not know yesterday. Every day, 5 minutes. And, after time, this builds up. And so it can be implemented in a number of ways. And so, like I said, if you talk to somebody and they explain something about their faith or their reading of the Bible or anything that is different than yours, then explore it. Explore it by asking them why they believe and giving their understanding and justifications. And instead of trying to defend your position so much, use this as an opportunity to try to understand their position better. And I think that will cause you to learn and grow much better. Instead of being complacent and living in an echo chamber where only what you say goes. And it's like the Dead Sea with no outlet. And you die because you cannot grow. So I would encourage you to go to drmsh.com, go to Michael Heiser's website, and look at the recent post called Things I've Learned. You should be able to just type in Google Michael S. Heiser or drmsh.com space Things I've Learned, and it should pop up for you really quickly if you want to search it and find that blog, and you can see where he talks about this dichotomy. But I want to go back to that original confrontation or challenge. It's not confrontation, it's probably the wrong word, but the challenge that he was issued. But he was confronted with a chance to make a change and realize, here I'm starting my journey in academics, and so I have a chance every day to learn something new and to grow. And that's what we ultimately want to do. So the easiest thing I've heard him say over and over again, I remember a podcast, and it was strange because he had a guest on and interviewing the guest, and the guest, said something about, well, have you read my book? And it's, I'll be honest, Dr. Heiser is an ancient Semitic scholar who focuses mainly in the Old Testament, and this was a New Testament scholar. And so Dr. Heiser was very frank with him, said, no, I've not read it. And I couldn't believe that he hadn't read the book, because the book is really fabulous, and I've read it. But, there's only so many books a person can read. But what Dr. Heiser did say is that he read the dictionary article that the man had written about that topic, where he covered the basics of his book. So Dr. Heiser had that basic understanding. And so, you don't have time to read all the books, or you may not exactly have resources. You may not have the library or chance to go in the pandemic, or wherever you live in a persecuted community, or, maybe online is your only route because of financial funding or whatever. But you're limited in your resources for whatever reason, and you're limited by time. So you can't read everything. You're not omniscient, as you can't do everything. So, one way to really increase your curve of understanding, your learning curve, is to sit down every day and take a dictionary article and read it. And you'll at least, kind of have a sense much better than most people. You've learned something new. And so most of you know on this channel that I have been working on videos, and I have discussed such videos as Logos Bible software and how you can get free resources. And I focused on that, how you can get so many free resources. And I'm hoping to use this opportunity to take up Dr. Heiser's challenge and show you in Logos how you can open up the free entries in their fact book and take 5 minutes and read something and see how it compares with what you already know. And then maybe, trying to then, if you want to go further. So, if you really like that topic and you want to go further, then maybe there are resources that are free that I offer that, I'm not offering them. I found them that are offered on the internet, and you can go to those and you can read more and get greater perspective. So it's either dig deep into one entry or, just read, lots of entries. And the more entries you read, the more knowledge and understanding you'll get, and you'll get that greater perspective that you can really understand biblical theology, and you can get the whole grasp of the whole message of the Bible by reading Bible dictionaries and reading more and more entries, so that you get a greater understanding of more and more parts of the Bible. So someone like Dr. Heiser, whose Semitics can read a dictionary entry in a New Testament book, a dictionary, and get an understanding of something that is outside of his purview per se, and he adds that knowledge, and then he knows, I need to get this guy on my podcast so that I can get his stuff out there for other people to understand, because this is very important. Even though he's not read the book, he's read the dictionary articles. So, we don't have the ability to buy every book, or the ability to access every book, or the ability to read every book because of time. But to shorten that, with trying to pick up at least a basic understanding of some of these things, is to then read the dictionary article. And then if you want more, reading the dictionary article, but I wanted more, so I read the whole book. And Dr. Heiser didn't. And to my knowledge, to this day, he hasn't read it, but he got what he wanted out of that dictionary article. So you can read more dictionary articles, or you can read, the same subject, the same entry in a different reference work, and you can dig deeper into that depending on your interest or your needs. Or if you're in ministry, maybe it's your parishioners or the people you're discipling, they have questions and you need to answer those, or you're doing something for a sermon or presentation or teaching in your weekly Bible study. Maybe you're part of a Bible study. You can dig deep in that way. Or if you're taking classes or teaching classes, you might want to do it so that you can just, spend 5 minutes a day and learning something to help you. And maybe you do none of these things and you just want to know more, because there's so many Christians out there that know so little, and they really don't know much about their faith or whatnot. And, for those that have listened to these broadcasts, this is pretty simple, free Logos. And if you're not an academic, you get plenty of resources in Logos to do this. And I'm going to show other resources that I found that are valuable on the internet, where you can go and read these entries, and it's pretty exciting. So I think it's worth you looking into these links and places to go. And if you want this, again, I have PDFs I've made, but most of the time they get ignored. Who wants to go through a over 10-page PDF document of just links? I guess it just overwhelms somebody. So I'm going to have to break those down into bite-sized broadcasts where I can explain those links. And then you can go to those links and you can study and read on the internet entries by peer-reviewed scholarship. And you can get a greater understanding, different perspectives from different people that are all a part of the Christian tradition, but come from it at a different angle. And we're all the body of Christ, and it takes all of us together, all the parts coming together to try to grasp as much as possible from the beginning, when they first began to tell stories about God and it became the Bible that we have today, all the way through how people have read that Bible throughout history. Trying, all of us, all of humanity trying to grasp this thing called God, theology, Theo and Logos, trying to understand this. So it's powerful. So the challenge is every day, take 5 minutes. Every day, take 5 minutes and try to learn something new. And the easiest way to do that is possibly just taking a Bible dictionary and reading that entry. So we hope you enjoyed this broadcast today, and we hope you continue with our journey and your journey into knowing more and growing, knowing and growing. Thank you very much, and God bless you for listening. Stay tuned for more episodes in videos to help you with your journey from nomorec.com.